Hello, this is the first streaming broadcast of the Northeast Travis County Democrats, and we're really pleased today to have here on August 17th at noon, panel members from the three school districts that are in our area, Manor ISD, Austin ISD, and Del Valle ISD. And we'll go ahead and just have each of the panel members introduce themselves.
Great, thank you very much, Tim. My name is Lynn Boswell. I'm a trustee in Austin ISD. I represent Central and West Central and South Central Austin. Your trustees in this area are Kevin Foster and Candace Hunter, who couldn't be here today, but we all make decisions for the district as a whole. And you also have two at-large members, Noeli Chalogo and Arthi Singh. So I think you're well represented by them and hope to do the same and talk about some important issues. Thank you.
Good afternoon or good morning? Good afternoon. My name is Ann Cortez, and I am Manor ISD Board of Trustee. I'm the board secretary, and I represent all of Manor ISD. We're a 100 square mile radius district. We actually have 5 schools in the Austin zip code. I've been a school board member. I was appointed in 2014, elected in 2015, and been there since, and shaking things up a little.
Good afternoon. I'm Ann Heuberger. I served on the Del Valle ISD Board since 2010. We have 9 school board members. We're unusual in the state, along with Austin. But I represent Single Member District 1, which is in the East Riverside, Pleasant Valley area. But we do have several schools in the city of Austin. And I really appreciate you all. Public education is so important. So I appreciate the invitation for us all to share. We all know each other, and Central Texas School Board members work together to benefit our public schools and our students and families. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I think we'll just follow the same. Maybe we'll start at the far end with Ann and come down to Lynn. So, Ann, what do you see as the challenges for education?
Oh, so many. The funding is probably first and foremost in the minds of every school district in the state, and well, Lynn can talk a little bit more about the unique part for Austin, but we haven't had increases in our per pupil funding, and of course you all know the governor's spending. We didn't get any increases this last session. We got more unfunded mandates that we're supposed to try to fund. Our student population, so many of us represent student populations that are low socioeconomic, and many more students are English as a second language. And so those are unique challenges, and we need support staff. We need lots of support staff, which we can try to provide in Del Valle. The funding is probably the biggest issue, and then tied into that is vouchers, and then tied into that is the testing, because if our schools look bad because of test scores, then they'll be able to convince the public you need to spend money on vouchers, and then that's less money for our school districts. So for me, that's the biggest challenge. Then I'm a retired school librarian, so I'm real concerned of HB 900. If y'all aren't aware of HB 900 that passed 2023, Book People was involved in a lawsuit, but it's all about books and getting those horrible books out of our schools and libraries and classroom libraries. We've not been hit hard on this side of town that I can see, but the west side of Austin has been hit. Those school districts some more with a lot of book challenges, etc. So I will end there and let others pick up. And there's lots of challenges.
And let me go ahead and Ray, if you could go ahead and do a 2-minute timer just to keep us not any hard times, but just so that we're aware. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think we all have very similar challenges. Funding, yes, so we've had over 20% inflation, unfunded mandates, and vouchers. Like, for example, in our school, vouchers, charters, this is what's gonna be affecting all school districts, and we're under, public education is under attack. So in Manor ISD, we have practically a charter in every corner of our district, one right in our district, and just most recently, another one will be added into our district. Another challenge that we have is making sure we provide affordable wages for our teachers, and it's very tough doing that with no funding increase. So a problem is teacher retention. And another thing is also, like Lynn said, making sure that we're starting to hear a little bit about the books and libraries. It's not that much in Manor ISD, but we have something that we really need to work on. And with all the funding challenges, another issue that we're thinking about is also affordability for our educators. How do we provide affordability with the teacher pays that we are able to afford in our district? Our district right now had approved negative $24 million budget deficit, and we're a small district. Not only that, we hear about recapture, and we're in a recapture district as well. I'm not sure exactly the total right now, but we're going to be anywhere between $2 and $6 million in recapture, and we have a lot to do with a lot less money, and we need people to know that, to help us, to advocate on a lot of things that are coming up this legislative session. And I am just so very proud to serve alongside with amazing trustees that are gathering together, uniting to make a very strong united message. And we hope that our communities will be able to understand that message and join our efforts.
Thank you, Anna. And I agree with all of this. The charter is the affordability, the funding, and some facts you can share with people if you want to go talk about school funding. Texas is consistently among the bottom 10 states in per student funding nationwide. We fund more than $4,000 less than the national average. And not the national high, the national average. Texas educates about 11% of all K-12 students in the entire country. So what happens in Texas, the funding in Texas has a profound impact not only on our local community, not only on our state, but on our nation as a whole. And we also are a country we know with an immense surplus, with a thriving economy. We have the funds to do it. Our government, our state government, is choosing not to do it. And we know that the Travis County delegation is with our schools. We know that they're with us. We know that this is a statewide issue, and that to move the needle, we have to talk to people in other parts of our state. So we know that there's a national playbook about defunding schools, so you can blame schools for failing, so you can privatize schools. That looks like charters, that looks like vouchers. All of those types are happening. It looks like control over the curriculum. There were hearings Monday and Tuesday of last week at the Capitol about public education, interim hearings. They talked about vouchers. The experts who came were from out of state. There were 4 people from out of state who are profiting from vouchers coming in to tell us why we should have that, along with the many millions of dollars of funding that are coming in from around the country to support that. The hearing also included a curriculum that the legislature approved development of last session about high-quality instructional materials that now have New Testament biblical content woven into them that was defended by people at that meeting. And James Tallarico, if you want to see, had beautiful specific pushback against it. If you want to go watch that hearing, it's online. So this is a national playbook designed to weaken the schools that we really need to be strong, because strong schools are an essential part of a strong community. We have a shift in local control. As our state has become more conservative and our communities have become more progressive, local control used to be a value that was held highly for our campuses. Now that local control looks more progressive than our state government, that's gone out the window. and they want more state control of our schools. That's a big shift, and that comes down to the library books that Ann was talking about, the charters, all of this. TEO oversight, a huge amount of taking that control away from our communities. And when they
For those of us, what is TEO oversight?
TEA oversight, Texas Education Agency, is intervening. You might be watching what's happening in Houston. That's the extreme version of it, but the consequences for standardized tests, lower scores for things. And I think when local control is taken away from our local communities, from our local school boards, trustees are the very closest people. We are very close to our voters. We are, a very representative, very direct form of government, and they're trying to take that voice away from our communities. So that's all major issues. And then I want to just go into a little bit of recapture in Austin ISD. We are, we have the distinction of being the highest recapture payer in the state in terms of dollars. We are not the highest payer. And a recapture is a system that is intended to equalize school funding. It's something that I personally really believe in. It takes money from property wealthy districts that can make a lower a lower tax rate and raise a large amount of money. And the idea is that money then gets shared with districts around the state that are property poor. I think that's a fantastic idea. That is what it was intended to be. It was mandated by the state Supreme Court, and it has gotten so out of whack that it is now a major source of revenue for our state, and much of the money recaptured never reaches a school anywhere. So Austin ISD last Thursday or Friday, I think on Thursday, wired $660 million in taxes, a single wire transfer to the state of Texas. That's local taxpayer money. That's almost half of what we collect in taxes. When you see that amount was $660 million with an M dollars to the state of Texas. That is down $277 million from what it was last year because of the homestead exemption. That has helped to lower everyone's property taxes. We pay, it's 40-something% right now of our funds to recapture. There are some districts, Lago Vista is a recapture district, Del Valley is a recapture, almost, not quite, almost. And it was intended to be property wealthy districts, but now we're seeing it in areas that have resort homes, where the people who go to the schools do not have economic advantage. But the money is leaving their communities. And we do not have less to spend in our schools. That's a misconception. People believe that districts that pay recapture have less to spend in their schools. We all have the same lousy amount statewide, according to the formulas. But in recapture districts, local taxpayers pay a whole lot more to get that amount in their schools. And it becomes an issue not of school funding, but really of affordability. That really impacts affordability in our community. So that is another challenge, and it's never reaching our schools, and that's just wrong.
As somebody who's been watching school financing, for the last couple of decades, you recapture, that was like 15 years ago.
It started.
And Richards. And Richards came up with it, no?
Well, no, it was a legal
It
decision.
came out of Edgewood ISD. It's been a good 30 years ago, if not longer.
But,
the state keeps messing with it.
It gets so that we get all these mistakes that are made decades ago, and they're not really, structurally, they're just put into the school finance system and given the same words come on it. And if you start talking about the state and its funding system, you sound like a complainer, and rather than somebody who's really, especially for like independent school districts where basically volunteers are pouring their hearts out to try to get the best possible outcome for the children in their area. And so, this is leading up to the next question, which is the challenges created by the state. I think that most people, they look at politics kind of skewed. It's like, here I am, what are they doing for me? And really, for something like education, it's a statewide system, and the school districts are probably gerrymandered just like house districts are, and so it's how all these things are working together that, and we have to, really, in order to make changes, we have to be working with people out in El Paso, in South Texas, North Texas. So tell us about the struggles, the challenges created by the state, the overall structure. And you want to go first?
I just, before I lose my train, part of the challenges too, and Lynn talked about local control too, and the state, you said the state, so Texas Education Agency. So the accountability rating system, right now in Manor ISD, and this is affecting everybody, Lynn briefly talked about what happened in Houston, how they took over. I mean, that's their first move. But in Manor ISD, I mean, they came in, we have a TA monitor, which came in simply for oversight supposedly of a school board member, which was inaccurate. They didn't, the whole process was skewed. But also, the people that they're putting in, like our monitor doesn't even have a superintendent experience, has never been a superintendent, has never been a school board member, and it's a CFO of another school district. So we passed all that, we had a new board. Now they're continuing to stay saying with a new accountability, intentional, moving the needle for grading of schools. Oh, by the way, you have another failing school, so we're gonna have to stay here another year. So I think they're the state is making it very hard and intentional to kind of take over districts, just like what they did in Houston. And so that's a big challenge, and I hear that from other school board members across the state of Texas. I also serve as president of the Mexican American School Board Association for the state, and I hear constantly different school districts, predominantly in majority Latino communities, having very similar issues with oversight of TA.
Yeah, and I want to do just a little history that when recapture, it was a family filed a lawsuit out of Edgewood ISD years ago, and it took years, as you know, in Texas. Well, when it was originally passed, property wealthy districts could vote, because I was working in College Station, and the board voted they would send their money to Bryan ISD, which was a much lower tax base. And so you could actually decide where your money was going to go. Well, then somewhere along the line, the state of Texas, remember how Rick Perry used to brag about we don't have a deficit budget, and every governor since has bragged about having a great budget? Well, they've taken money from recapture districts and putting it in the state budget. It's not, as Lynn said, it is not going to our schools. It's hurting our schools. And one of the things that politicians didn't look at, Austin, Del Valle, Manor, everybody on the east side has a really high rate of students of low income, of poverty level. So they don't take that into a balance. So the districts that need the money the most, because they're property rich, and Del Valle was supposed to be recaptured this year, and they kind of redid some of a little bit of the formula, we could be next year. And so it was supposed to be a couple million this last year. So that's a little history of that, because when people talk about school funding, you need to really understand this has been a process over a number of years that the state of Texas has constantly wanted to underfund our schools. And they expect more. They expect a lot more, but they want to underfund. Going into the takeover, one school can be low performing. One school in ASD, one in Manor, one in Del Valle can be underperforming and take over. Houston ISD was taken over because one high school was an F high school, but by the time the state took them over, they were a B. So the state has taken so much power from you all, from the community members that are paying the taxes to support our public schools. And I also wanted to mention the curriculum issues are huge. One of the things the state, I call it bribery. You need to pay attention to the State Board of Education. A lot of things go to the state board: the textbook adoption, the final approval of charters, curriculum. And so September 10th through 13th is the next State Board of Education meeting. And it kind of flies under the radar for a lot of groups, a lot of people, and they will be discussing the curriculum again. This is interesting. You don't have to adopt that curriculum, But if you do, the state can pay up to $60 per student if you adopt their Christian-based curriculum.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
And then
It's robbery, in my opinion.
Yes.
I want to add some of the curriculum now that I just remembered. I don't know what year it was, but it was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. They were trying to pass a racist book for social studies, considering it Mexican American or Latino studies. So we were there, we fought, we testified, and thank goodness it didn't pass, but it's just constantly we see these type of issues that we have to fight, and it's just,
It's aggravating.
yes.
Yeah,
I
go
have no
ahead.
words.
And I would say if you want to define the biggest challenge to public education in our state right now, it is an open hostility to public education. I think that's really what it comes down to. And I serve on the board of the Texas Association of School Boards. I serve on the steering committee of a national group, the school board steering committee of a national group called Local Progress that represents progressive elected officials in county commissions, city councils, school boards. This is not unique to Texas. This is not unique here in this moment. This is happening. And I think it is, we already fund 2 systems with charters and local public schools. The state is working very hard to create 3 systems to fund with our public tax dollars by adding vouchers, education savings account. They go by different names. They are basically a form of taking our public tax money and directing it to private schools. We don't get to create our own fire departments, build our own roads because we want to keep that money for ourselves. Public schools are a public good. It is perhaps no accident, Representative Hinojosa pointed out at the hearing on Monday, it is perhaps no accident that as hostility to public schools is rising, it's rising at a time when our state is becoming more diverse, when the population of students we're educating is increasingly diverse. That is probably not an accident. Texas has held out against vouchers for a very long time because our rural communities have spoken loudly and said they do not work. Public schools are the biggest employer. There are more than 1,000 school districts in Texas. 80% of the school districts educate 20% of our students. Most of these are very small districts. They are the hearts of their communities. They are the biggest employers in most of these communities. They matter deeply to these communities. It is football. It is a center of public life. It is so many things. And vouchers are not going to serve that population. And because the system hasn't worked, you saw the special sessions. You see the money pouring in from out of state to Governor Abbott, who's used it to fight these, to try to buy seats and try to flip the legislature to work in his favor when communities are saying loudly they don't want to. And we all have the good fortune of being engaged and involved with trustees from districts very different from our own. When I can go to the Capitol with Ann and Anna and a trustee from Pearl and a trustee from Dripping Springs and myself from Austin and say with no hesitation, we all need the same things in our schools. And that is true statewide. Big districts, small districts. At the hearing on Monday, there was a trustee from Lorena, which you have probably seen driving from here to Dallas. There was a trustee from Vernon, a community that votes very different from my district in Austin, and yet we want the same things. So one of the biggest challenges with public education in the state is that our legislature is not reflecting our state's values. You look at the polls, they don't reflect what the legislature is doing. And that's true across a lot of issues that we all care about. It is absolutely true in education. So I think our delegation at the state legislature, almost to a person, is with us. To make real change, and we'll talk about that more in a little while, we have to connect with our friends and allies in other parts of the state. We have to talk to our friends and relatives outside of Austin and outside of Travis County, and we have to figure out how to support. I am not a billionaire. I cannot pay in like people have, Jeff Yaz from Pennsylvania has given $10 million to Governor Abbott.
It ought
I
to be
believe
illegal.
he's given at least maybe not 10, but more than 6.
No, I think it was 10, and
it
it was
is
to
10.
knock out the opponents to vouchers, the Republican
Yes,
Party.
but I can support good candidates who have a message to share with their voters. We all, about 6 weeks ago, were at a fundraiser for Jenny Burkholz, who's running in Travis County, to help her get her message, in Williamson County, to help her get her message to voters there. So the challenges are real, but the belief in public education is strong. And that gives me hope that we'll get where we need to be.
Well, I think that I want to throw one additional question that I didn't. We talked about it, and I think it's what kind of bond packages are you guys elections are you focusing on? So if you could just spend a minute talking about that right now.
So, in Manor ISD, because we're in a big deficit, we are going to try to approve or go up for what we call VADER election, voter approved tax rate election. And that decision will be made on Monday. And we have in the past, since 2014, in 2014 we passed almost $125 million in bonds. In 2016, we passed $86 million in bonds. And in 2019, we passed the biggest bond package of $280 million. We are a growing district. We have a need. And with all the bonds that we have passed, and with these unfunded mandates and the negative deficit that we have, we're having to use, it's a very complicated formula and it's very complicated to explain, but what we call one of our three golden pennies from our bond capacity or INS account to switch it over to maintenance and operation to help us fund a 3% teacher raise, to help us fund House Bill 3 unfunded mandates that we're having to use for police officers and equipment. And the challenge that we see if our Board of Trustees decide to vote for the bond package or for the VADER election this November is the language that will have to be on the ballot that will say it's a tax increase, which it is not. In fact, we're going to be lowering the tax rate by 0.104 cents per $100 or per tax. So that's going to be a challenge. And not only that, it's going to be at the very, very bottom of the ballot. And there's a lot of other things that are at the very top of the ballot. So we are hoping to really make sure and educate everyone to help us spread the message on the importance of, if we vote for this VADER election, that it will pass because our teachers need it. Our safety and security requirements, safety is always the top priority. We need that.
And I don't know if you caught it, 4 sessions ago now? 2 sessions ago now, Lieutenant Governor Patrick pushed and it passed. On every bond that school districts do, you have to put in the language, this will be a tax increase, even though it's not. It's on the ballot that it will be a tax increase if you vote for this. And so that's why 2 years ago, a lot of bonds failed across the state, because our leaders at the Capitol push against school bonds. They think we're building Taj Mahals for our kids. They think they look on football stadiums. So it's a huge challenge to convince, I had a neighbor vote for our last bond because I told her, no, it is not a tax increase. So not only trying to encourage, share with the community why you need a bond, then you have to dispute, well, no, the state's lying to you, basically. The state is requiring us to lie to you on that. So, but we don't have a bond right now, but I know Austin does.
And we came to Travis County in 2022 with a $2.4 billion bond for construction. Bonds and bond money in school districts can be used for certain things: construction, transportation, technology, cannot be used to pay people. And every district in Texas, people is the single biggest expense. Our teachers, our custodians, our bus drivers, our librarians, that is the biggest expense. We pay about 87% of our budget goes to people. And that is true of pretty much every district in the state. We are also in a situation, because school funding has not gone up and because our schools are facing inflation in the same way we all are at home, our fuel, our utilities, our insurance, all of it costs more. We cut $30 million from our budget last year. We are cutting between this year and next year, we are going to have to cut $78 million from our budget. School budgets are not fluffy. School budgets are lean. And that is going to be 10% of our operating costs over just a handful of years to try to keep a balanced budget, if the legislature does not come with more funding. So we are coming to voters. We also will have a meeting on Monday, the same time as Manor, looking at what's called a voter approval tax referendum election. We will be considering coming and asking voters to approve. We have 9 cents remaining under Texas law. And those 9 cents, they're called golden pennies and copper pennies. That is what Texas allows, 15 cents above your tax rate that you can invite voters to approve. That 15 cents is intended to cover everything that the state does not mandate us to do. The state does not require school nurses. The state does not require librarians. The state ratio of counselors to students required is 450 to 1. National recommendation is 250 to 1. The state does not require dual language, advanced placement, dual credit with ACC. And our communities, they do not require a rich mix of electives, advanced arts, a lot of the athletics we offer. Parent support specialists, which work directly with our families with the highest need. We know that class size matters. We know that how much we pay our teachers and being able to retain our teachers and our other staff matters. Every person on a campus is an educator whose relationships with students contribute to student success. We know the state has this high stakes testing, and we have things we need to meet. We also know that we want more for our kids than the ability to pass the standardized test. All of it takes money, and so we are coming to our state, to our voters. We're going to be discussing on Monday and possibly approving as a board, coming to our voters and asking you to approve 9 cents additional on your Austin ISD tax rate. Right now, we have the lowest tax rate in Central Texas. We're at about 85 cents right now. This would increase it to 94 cents. That would make us the 3rd lowest rate in Travis County after Eames and Round Rock. Lots of districts around us have tapped into those copper pennies. Those pennies will be recaptured. Golden pennies are not subject to recapture. Those copper pennies are. And that's a hard thing to come ask our families to do. It would be for the average homeowner an increase of $34 a month. We have offered more than the state requires for many years without coming to our community and asking for that. We are at a point now where we really have to seriously consider coming and asking for that. I don't know how the vote will go, but if it does appear on your ballot, it will be right down there at the bottom. And we as trustees, if it ends up on the ballot, will be happy to come and talk with the groups you're interested in, answer questions that people have. It's a big ask of our community, but it's a big need for our kids. And that's really what we'll be talking about on Monday and what we'll be taking the vote on. So if you see it, if it passes, please reach out, let us know. We're happy to come answer any question that anyone has and come speak with any group.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and predict right now that, come Sunday, you guys are going to, vote as a board to, do those bond elections. And I'm gonna predict right now that, if we get down to that part of the ballot, we're going to, what these Travis County Democrats will also, vote to endorse that. But, trying to get that down to everybody in precinct level is real hard. And you talk about where you have, the state is so dysfunctional from gerrymandering and whatnot. That helps create an unhealthy psychology with the legislators that go. So we're going to have to try to create a healthier psychology and voters by working with precincts and also conversing with people around the state to see what their special needs are. Now that we've got through all the easy stuff, what do you hope for as a school trustee?
Yeah, I'll start with that. I mean, the thing I hope for most is that the value people place in our public schools will show up in our state policy, that our communities will be allowed to support and create the kind of public schools that people all across our state value, treasure, know are essential to the success of our students, the success of our state. There are more than 5 million kids every year counting on us. We have to do better for our kids, and I remain optimistic that as a state we will get there, and that until we get there as local communities, we will take anything we possibly can into our own hands to do the best we can for the kids that we're working to educate. You will see a link. We have each adopted some legislative priorities. We will be adopting in Austin more legislative priorities. We started with our funding priorities, and that includes some looking at recapture. We called to look at the impact of recapture on the affordability of housing for the people who live in our community. We've called for an early payment discount, for considering the needs of the student populations that high recapture districts serve. Recapture looks different for housing affordability in Eames than it does in many of our communities in Austin. We think that should be something that should be taken into account. We're all calling for an increase to the basic allotment, that building block of school funding that has us in the bottom 10 statewide. As our funding goes up, more money reaches the people who work in our schools, more money, we have more options for our students and supporting the people who are there for our students, and our recapture goes down. And we know that our schools need more money, that we need more money for everyone who works in our schools and to support our students. So I really hope that our state's values will be reflected in our schools, and events like this are a huge part of making that happen. I also hope that you will join us in what we've done to support co-public education candidates beyond Travis County. I'm happy to talk with anyone after this meeting about who I'm supporting as an individual and what you can do. But those candidates need funds. They're going to need door knocking, a field trip to Williamson County, to San Antonio. Let's get together with some friends and go make those things happen for people we know, and make sure that voters in those areas know what those people stand for so they can make an informed choice. So those are my hopes.
Well, you summarized it all anyway. Great job. My hopes as well is, funding, being able to help us really run a good public education system where we're not asking more of our teachers, giving them less. I think we just need to join forces, and I'm very proud once again of the group that we have here. I think it's just statewide joining forces because it's a major impact. And they said the governor is bringing people from out of state, donating billions and billions of dollars. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm the president of the Mexican American School Board Association, and we're joining forces with other states as well. We have our conference coming up in September, and we had the TA commissioner last year, and Arizona came over, and they're coming this year too, and they said, don't let this happen to Texas. Learn from Arizona. So guess what? I guess we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to bring people from out of state, share their stories, and make sure that we don't, we fight this attack on public education. And Lynn said everything. I'm so glad. And there's a lot of work to do. So, hey, this is the time to make those walks, make those calls, and shake things up and get people motivated.
Right. And I agree. She used the word value, and I was thinking that I hope from our state politicians all down to community members to understand the needs of our families. And I'm very proud to live and represent Valle ISD on the east side of Boston and East Travis County. And we have some really unique needs. We don't, and so I wish the state would recognize that when they're talking about funding and grading us on one test during the year. And the fact that they keep changing the goalposts is horrendous. Do you all know, there's the 2 lawsuits. We were so proud to be the original lawsuit, the first one about test scores. They just ruled this week, we're not gonna be grading the schools right now, thankfully the judge. But they changed the rules in the middle of the school year that's from 60% of your high school seniors had to graduate with career-ready college or military to 88%. The middle of the school year. That's why you are hearing superintendents all across the state. I mean, rural superintendents that are basically Republican, representing rural districts are saying, stop. This is creating havoc, and it's making us all look bad. But we have our student population in Texas has a lot of needs. In Del Valle, we don't have a major grocery store. We finally bought and got clinics through Central Health. They were now we have 2 clinics. The one's open, one is opening. We just finally got a CVS that had pharmacy. So our school district has to do a lot for our families. We don't have childcare. So we provide free after-school childcare. We provide counselors. We have substance abuse counselors. We are proud to have librarians, art, and music in every school. And so we are now providing free breakfast and lunch for every student. But those things, you've got to work to get grants and partnerships. And so I really hope, I wish the state politicians would understand the extreme need our students and families across the state of Texas need. They listen to old barons out in West Texas. They're the ones driving this. You don't know the name of what's it done. They are driving, I forget his first name.
Tim Dunn, Ferris Wilkes, and Ferris Wilkes.
They are driving this. They are giving millions and maybe billions to the Abbott. They are driving what's happening in our public schools right now. Totally driving that, along with the guy from up north.
Because they're preachers for their own churches.
I know. True.
Self-anointed, we know best.
Yeah, that they bought and paid for.
And true. So I know I love talking about Del Valle. I love talking about public education. That's been my life. I've been, from the time I graduated from college, I've been involved in public education one way or another. And so that's my hope. And it's true, we need to reach out. I don't know, I'll just say this quickly. I've heard Representative Hinojosa a couple of times in the last few months. There is a chance, Governor Abbott's already bragging about, we've got vouchers in we're going to pass it. They passed some very extreme far-right Republicans that took over, that bumped off Republicans that voted against vouchers. They are so extreme that the Democrat Party thinks they could defeat them at the Capitol, and that's why we need to reach out to Jenny and in San Antonio and other areas of the state to help Democrats defeat those far-right Republicans that Abbott thinks he has vouchers passed right now.
And we need to start doing that by working our own precincts.
Yes.
And we got some time considerations here. I think that, this goal would be 2+ years, before we can get rid of some of the statewide officers. And the Democrats have to do a lot of building in order to make that happen. I think it's attainable to get where we can control the House with these additional House seats. And you're right. I think that, by eating their young, as it were, that the Republican Party, in spite of all of its money, may be weak. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we need to do. And so I really appreciate the work you guys do, and thank you for your time. And I think also there's, Austin Community College, the new president has just started a thing where he's allowed people to come in for free community college education. And I think they just did that on their own. Mm-hmm. So there's ways that we can all work together to make it so that Texas can be a good place to work. And that, whatever the state is doing, they're making it so that people like Samsung will not have potential employees with the skill sets to work here. So thank you so much. A hand for all of our. And with that, we'll, hope to get everybody out here, for our next, NETCo meeting. We have monthly at Tres Amigos at 290 and, 183, third Saturdays of the month. Doors open 11, we order lunch, and then we start having a really great meeting.